everyone, we're here to talk about Vanity Fair through page 500 or so. Through chapter 42 is what we're talking about today. One of the things I wanted to start with is the fact that we're kind of in the center of the book, and one thing that I'm noticing is that I feel sort of becalmed is the word I thought about. Like we were sailing really fast through all of these conflicts in the beginning of the book, and so it was all about Becky and Amelia and their marriages and Waterloo and then Miss Crawley's fortune, and all of those things have been resolved now. And so we're sort of sitting in the center of the book, and I noticed that the chapters just started to go back and review every set of characters and where they are now. And it's almost like Thackeray is setting up the second set of conflicts.
Well, and I think where they are is an important analogy, because I think a lot of what's going on right now is geography. Is some of the characters are spread apart, and Thackeray needs to get them together, to get them to particular places, right? So he's got these chess pieces out, and he's sort of setting things up for final moves. I'm thinking particularly about Becky's return, right? She's off away from things. She's been sort of thrown out of the family, and the death of, is it Sir Pitt?
Yeah, so
right, allows her to come back into the story, and start sort of working her social magic, whether what kind of magic it is, I'm not sure.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know what the next set of conflicts is. So yeah, she's back, but there doesn't seem to be any conflict. In fact, she's welcomed back into the family now that Sir Pitt has died.
No, she's not entirely welcomed. They're charmed by her, and she gets back into people's good graces.
Yeah.
But there's a real sense of instability there.
Yeah,
because
but
at least maybe it's just dramatic irony. We know that it's all a put up.
But I don't think that that's much of a conflict. That's not going to drive us through the second half of the book.
Well, except you're seeing her teeter, right? I mean, she's building this appearance of success, and the question is, can she pull it off? I think she can.
Yeah, I don't know. That for me that's not going to drive me through 400 more pages. I think there's a new set of conflicts coming way beyond that. For one thing, the little boys have met each other now. And Amelia, I think the one setup that I see is that there's going to be some kind of a showdown between Amelia, the Sedleys, and the Osbornes, because the Osbornes really haven't had any contact with their little nephew, grandson. Amelia lets Dobbin's sisters take Georgie out to the park one day, and while he's out with them, and they probably know exactly what they're doing, they introduce him to Miss Osborne, George's sister, who goes home to her father and says, "You'll never guess who I met today." And you can see both from the reaction of Mr. Osborne and from Amelia's reaction that this is a kind of terrifying moment for them. I think there's going to be some kind of showdown over that child. But I feel like there have to be more pieces, more conflicts that are going to arise in order to take us through the second half of the novel. So,
we haven't seen much of the Amelia Dobbin line, right? That's got to be...
Yeah, right. And actually, Amelia and Becky, if you would think from the beginning of the book that pairing is going to come head to head, but there doesn't seem to be any indication yet that that's going to come back around, but maybe it will. So anyway, I just had this funny feeling as I was reading, the last 40 pages maybe of this section, that, it was almost like we were in a lull, plot-wise.
Right, but see, what's interesting is I felt like so much is happening in 10 pages of this book, that there's so much jockeying for position going on. There's so much rising and falling of social fortunes. And so I don't know if in a weird way, maybe we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, because I think what's happening is we're getting a lot of summary chapters. So yeah, in a summary chapter, a lot of things happen, but you don't get a lot of scene where things slow down. Like one exception to that would be the dinner that when Becky and Rawdon come back to the Crawley home for the first time, and there's actually a long scene played out over dinner. But other than that, I don't think there's really a whole lot of scene that's played out in any detail. It's a lot of summary.
There's some comic stuff that actually gets drawn out about the Ribbons, that character, who
the maid who
Right.
thinks that Sir Pitt is going to marry her someday.
right.
Yeah.
And is it the Ribbons who
Okay,
ends up
yeah.
trying to steal pearls and things like that?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a long gag. I'm not sure what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. There's not this sort of long scenes of events happening without us being kind of told what to think about them. Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, you were talking about how there's a new Sir Pitt now. So Pitt, the son, has
Yeah.
taken over the family and seems to be running things a little bit more smoothly than his father did.
Well, he seems to be a very just person. He's really trying to think about like what's the right thing for the family and not just what's satisfying to me. And so all of a sudden I started to think, oh, maybe this is someone who can escape Vanity Fair.
Oh, like he's going to become the moral conscience somehow, or
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well,
he's a
'cause
Crawley.
He's a Crawley, but right there's that letter that he dictates, and
Oh yeah,
his
when he
wife
stands
thinks,
up to his mother-in-law.
yeah, and his wife's like, wow, it's amazing that just rolled off his tongue, and then we find out that he's rehearsed
He's been working on it.
So, but just the fact that he's been working on it and thinking about sort of where things need to go and how to move the pieces so that they get there shows a little bit more sort of depth and integrity to him, and it may come to something.
So you just used the same metaphor to talk about Sir Pitt that you did to talk about Thackeray, about moving the pieces
Right,
into place.
right.
So are you suggesting that Thackeray is somehow using that character of Sir Pitt as the narrator or the one who's kind of going to end up being in charge of how things work for everybody?
No, I mean one of the things I find really interesting, that's one of the best lines in the reading, is actually when Thackeray or the narrator refers to Amelia as the heroine. Right. Last time out, we were talking about Becky as the heroine.
Well, because we were told this is a novel without a hero, and then last time we were saying, yeah, but now he's referring to Becky as the heroine, and this time it's Amelia that gets referred to as the heroine. So
right. So like I'm not quite sure where the center is all of a sudden.
Yeah, but then it's possible that that's a function of this having been written in serial form. Mm-hmm. I don't know, though. It seems like that word hero or heroine is a really important word that Thackeray really thought about. It's in the subtitle of the novel, so it seems like maybe that's not an accident.
No, I mean, certainly this is a novel, if it's, sort of got Pilgrim's Progress in the background, right, that is very sort of virtue-oriented and like, here's how to live and here's how to be a good person, right? So something like hero or heroine is going to be an important term.
But they can't both be the heroine. I mean, they've been set up as opposites. They can't both be the heroine. Can they? I mean, I don't know. Maybe they could.
And we were talking about this a couple videos ago, how on the one hand, Thackeray is so critical of Becky, but he still likes her,
Yeah, and he doesn't seem to like Amelia that much. He describes her as being kind of dull and not very bright and not very handsome.
Right.
Even though men are all the men she meets fall all over themselves to be with her.
Right, and she hasn't earned that. It kind of seems to be his attitude. The men look ridiculous for it, and she actually doesn't come out looking too good as a result either.
Yeah, I was thinking that I wanted to go to that passage, that very passage where Amelia is referred to as the heroine, because I was just thinking in that section, what a good job Thackeray is doing, really, of writing these female characters. I mean, he's a 19th century writer, so it's not ideal, but I would say that of most of the male 19th century readers or novelists I've read, he's pretty progressive when it comes to talking about the women. So, I mean, he's talking about how some of the other women are complaining that all the men love Amelia so much and they don't really understand why. And then they accuse them, well, this is a particular woman who says, it is only her pretty face which all you gentlemen admire so. And then Thackeray agrees with her. He says, very likely Miss Binney was right to a great extent. It is the pretty face which creates sympathy in the hearts of men, those wicked rogues. Okay, I mean, he is being a little tongue-in-cheek there. A woman may possess the wisdom and chastity of Minerva, and we give no heed to her if she has a plain face. What folly will not a pair of bright eyes make pardonable? What dullness may not red lips and sweet accents render pleasant?
The thing, when I was reading that, I was like, oh, Becky.
Right, but actually this is being said about Amelia.
Right.
In either case, I think that Thackeray is on to men and understands that the women are actually smarter and more resourceful and more admirable than the men, and than any of the men give them credit for, with possibly the exception of Dobbin.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are a lot of the women in here sort of understand their status, understand the powers that they have as women maybe, but also as individuals, right? These are the things that I have to work with.
Well, and that's what I like about the way he's writing the women characters. They are individuals. They're not stand-in female figures. They actually have personalities and strengths and weaknesses. And he seems to be... I feel like Thackeray must have spent some time in the company of women. He must have been paying attention. He kind of gets them.
Even though this book is almost 200 years old, right? There are a lot of analogies.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Like you were talking about Instagram in this book.
When the Buttes end up not getting Miss Crawley's fortune after all, and there's this disappointment, and then Mrs. Butte and her daughters sort of pull themselves together and make good appearances. They know how to live with less. Yeah, it reminded me of Instagram, where you may not have very much, but you make it look like you have more than you actually have, and the way you present yourself to the world is not necessarily reality, but you gloss it over and you get away with it.
And it can get you places. It can get you some of the things you want.
She's trying to get her daughters married off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm still enjoying this. Are you still enjoying this?
You know what I'm finding is I enjoy it when I have the time to.
Yeah.
It's not a book to sit down and read 20 minutes at a go.
Yeah.
You really need to sink into it.
That's true of almost any book. Almost any book is better if you have an hour at a time than if you have 10 or 15 or 20 minutes at a time.
The pace of this is really interesting. We think of 19th century novels as being sort of slow and laborious.
Yeah,
maybe.
right.
This is anything but
Right,
that.
it's not slow and laborious at all. Although the fact that it takes us so long to do 100 pages and make a video kind of belies that claim.
Right.
But we're headed towards page 600, and we'll be back when we get there. Hopefully sooner rather than later.